And, one of the themes of today's show is fact checking. Quite often a piece of information comes out that is very questionable or completely inaccurate, but enough people pick up on it and everybody just assumes it's true. Let's jump to this for a second. One of the great podcasts out there is the Mark Maron podcast, the WTF podcast. And he recently had Patty Jenkins on it. Now, I hadn't listened to that episode of the podcast. Patty Jenkins, obviously the director of Wonder Woman and Wonder Woman 1984. And reports started going around about this podcast that Patty Jenkins was saying Warner Brothers didn't even want to use her. They didn't even want to look at her script. They only wanted her for Wonder Woman because she was a woman and it's a woman character and all that kind of, and all these things started to come out. And I thought that's really interesting. So it led to having like headlines like Patty Jenkins details internal war at Warner Brothers over Wonder Woman. There was so much mistrust and other things. They even wrote this. Now listen to this. This is key. We'll pick it up from here and we'll go down to here. All right. Listen, Jenkins described an internal war at Warner Brothers where the studio was apparently less interested in her ideas than the symbol of a woman director helming a female-fronted superhero movie. They wanted to hire me like a beard. They wanted me to walk around on set as a woman, but it was their story and their vision, Jenkins said. And my ideas? They didn't even want to read my script. There was such mistrust of a different way of doing things and a different point of view. Okay. Now, this is coming to us from IndieWire. IndieWire is one of the truly good outlets out there. I just want to put that out there first and foremost. IndieWire is one of the truly good, high standard publications out there. I like IndieWire very, very much, and they're very, very reliable. But we've got to fact check this. Let's look at this wording again. They say Jenkins describes an internal war at Warner Brothers where the studio was apparently less interested in her ideas than the symbol of a woman director helming a female-fronted superhero. And then they quote Patty Jenkins saying they wanted to hire me like a beard. They wanted me to walk around on set as a woman, but it was their story and their vision and my ideas. They didn't even want to read my script. Okay, so the picture that gets painted here, the picture that they paint is a picture of Warner Brothers only being interested in having Patty Jenkins for that movie because she was a woman and they didn't even want to read her script. And then I have read for days people running with that. So I finally thought, well, that sounds pretty major. I should go and listen to this podcast myself. And Lindro sends in a super chat on the super chat badge on the live chat. Thank you for that, Lindro. I thought I better go and listen to this podcast myself. So last night I sat down and I listened to the entire podcast, Mark Maron with Patty Jenkins. It was just, I think it was just about an hour long, something like that. Anyway, so I read it, and certainly, true enough, Patty Jenkins does say this. Patty Jenkins absolutely says they wanted to hire me like a beard. They wanted me to walk around on set. They didn't even want to use my script. But here's the problem. When you listen to the podcast, and these little details, these little facts are important. When you listen to the podcast, this whole thing that Patty Jenkins is saying, they wanted to hire me like a beard, my ideas, they didn't even want to read my script. She was not talking about Warner Brothers or the Wonder Woman project. That is an important distinction to make. So while IndieWire, and again, I have all the respect in the world for IndieWire. They're awesome. However, they dropped the ball here. And it wasn't just them. IndieWire and a lot of other outlets, they started running with this narrative that, Warner Brothers they only wanted to use her because she was a woman and they didn't want to use her script or listen to her ideas. But when you listen to the podcast itself, she is, and the Blue Corner sends in a super chat badge on the live chat. Thanks for that, Blue Corner. When you listen to the actual podcast, Patty Jenkins clearly was telling a story in a chronological order. And she's talking about coming out of doing Monster and a lot of the TV work she had done. And she talks about how a lot of the studios only wanted to use her as a beard and didn't even want to hear her ideas or look at her scripts and things like that. And then she talks later about then getting connected with the Wonder Woman project and telling her story about being involved with the Wonder Woman project. Now, there was definitely some drama, some back and forth going on with the Wonder Woman project as well. But this is this article, and again, it sounds like I'm picking on IndieWire, and I certainly don't mean to. A lot of outlets were running with stuff like this. The way they laid it out, specifically the way it's worded, Jenkins described an internal war at Warner Brothers where the studio is apparently less interested in her ideas than the symbol of a woman directing a female-fronted studio. That's not true. That is not what Patty Jenkins was saying in the podcast. I sat, I listened to it. She was talking about experiences before being connected to Wonder Woman, and then she talks about her experiences being connected to Wonder Woman. So, again, all due respect to IndieWire, who is a terrific outlet, you're seeing these headlines all over the place. When you hear people talking about this story, guys, now you can fact check them. It is not true. That is not the way the podcast was laid out. The author, in this case, Zach Sharf, just accidentally, and I'm sure it was an accident, accidentally took parts of the podcast and got them in the wrong order and said she was talking about this stuff with Wonder Woman. That's not the case. That's not what happened. So anyway, yeah, and I encourage you guys, it's actually a very interesting interview that Mark Maron does with Patty Jenkins. Patty Jenkins said something really interesting in the podcast. And she said this. She talked about when she was done with Monster, everybody was throwing all these scripts at her, but they were all about the same thing. They're all about the struggle of being a woman in this or the struggle of being a woman in that. And Patty Jenkins said something really interesting. She said, I want to make movies about women. I don't want to make movies about being a woman. And at first I thought, well, isn't that the same thing? And then I backed up and I listened to her say it again. I thought, you know what? No, that's actually very profound. She says, I want to tell stories about women kicking ass and doing great things and all this kind of stuff. I don't want to make all my movies just make about the struggle of being a woman. I want to make movies about women. I don't want to make movies about being a woman. I thought that was pretty insightful. I thought that was pretty cool. Anyway, guys, question is, what do you guys think about Patty Jenkins' comments and these reports? Have you seen those reports going around yourself? Does that put a little bit more clarity on it? Jump down into the comments section below and let me know your thoughts. Okay, guys.